One. Good afternoon and welcome. This week on The Big Show, one of the funniest comedians of all time, Eddie Murphy, turned 60. We discuss and pick our 6 favorite films from this trailblazing funny man. Blackfilm and TV.com founder and show correspondent Wilson Morales will join Charles Kirkland and myself as we discuss the career and legacy of Eddie Murphy. All on episode 449, Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, happy Easter and welcome to Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. I am Tim Gordon, and of course, I am joined by Charles Kirkland Jr., the man with the plan that has an instrument behind his back that nobody has ever seen him play, but it's okay. It's good ambiance. Charles, welcome to the show.
You're very funny, very funny. Okay, so yeah, I don't play this. I told you this before. It's my daughter's instrument. I play another instrument.
You did tell us that, but we have new people cycling in every week. So, you know, an old story can be a new story.
That is
such
true.
As our next person who's on.
But before you go over to Wilson, I just want to say I'm giving a shout out to DMX out there who's in grave condition from a heart attack. So prayers go up to DMX and his family right now.
See, this is what happens when you don't have a pre-show meeting because you like getting ahead of it, but it's okay. We you know, it's good that you got that in early. And also from Blackfilm and TV.com, it is my man, Wilson Morales, white background and all. Wilson, welcome to the show.
You say you made fun of me before. Now I'm good to go like everybody else. I'm getting the crazy praise as far as how good my background looks. You know,
I miss the red background, man. I really do, because it gave us some constant fodder week in and week out. And not just me. It was other people that came on and gave Wilson the business over the curtain. But it's okay. It's cool. Congratulations on celebrating the 30th anniversary of the 5 Heartbeats. I heard through the grapevine, since I'm not allowed to be on Clubhouse without an iOS device or an Apple device. But congratulations, Wilson. I heard it went well.
Yes, we were able to get a majority of the cast. You know, we had Robert Townsend involved. We had Harry Lennox. We had Tico Wells. We had, who am I missing? We had the 5.
Michael Wright.
And 2 hours later,
Leon
showed up. You know, initially he couldn't be on because they said he was on a flight, and whether or not people believed it or not, but he got in, better late than never. And we also had the lovely Troy Byer, as well as costume designer Ruth Carter on the show. So we had lots of members who were part of that film.
Nice, man. Great job, brother. Great job. Now, I want to start today's show with Charles, who literally jumped the gun. I just saw a text a couple of hours ago that DMX, which I usually call him the X-Man, but basically had a drug overdose last night. And as Charles reported, he is in grave condition. So, you know, I prayed for DMX. You know, I didn't say prayers up. We prayed for DMX. Man, but it's horrible, man. I just hate hearing these stories of these young dudes whose music, who have entertained us and given us music. You know, we've already lost Fife and Jam Master Jay. Who was the most recent guy that we've lost? But we've lost a lot of guys in hip hop, man. And you know, DMX is 50, which is not old at all. DMX is 50. So I am hoping that these reports, you know, that I'm hearing that X can turn it around, because he literally, Wilson, how long ago was it? He was on versus Snoop Dogg about a month and a half ago. Am I right? Was it about
I don't know the dates. You know, it's sad, you know, but addiction is a problem that sometimes is not always addressed in certain, whether it's drug or alcohol. You know, sometimes those demons are not hard to get rid of. You know, and let's hope for the best, and you know, and let's keep our prayers up.
All right. And then one last thing before we get into Wilson giving us the weekend entertainment. Want to also congratulate Maxwell, whose album, I think his debut album. God, how am I forgetting this album? Because we literally did a 20th anniversary of this album. What is the name of Maxwell's debut album? Anybody? Oh my God, man. I am so embarrassed, but it's the 25th anniversary of that album. And I will pull it up in a second. And Maxwell, my apologies, bro. I didn't want to. Oh, Urban Hang Suite. My goodness. 25 years ago, 1996. Quick story on this one. I was working on radio at the time when this album dropped. And I remember it wasn't this actual album, but it was his follow-up, Embrya, that was given to me like a month and a half before it was released. And I took a trip over to St. John. And I remember every time I listen to that album to this day, I think about Maxwell and songs like Drown Deep Hula. But, you know, that album that he dropped in 96, man, that along with what D'Angelo had dropped, also had Erykah Badu during that time. So there was this huge neo soul movement, despite the fact that nobody likes the name in 2021 when you call it neo soul. But that's what that music was, man. So 25th anniversary of Urban Hang Suite. Congratulations, Maxwell. That's an album that literally has aged well and stood the test of time. All right, Wilson. So with that being said, man, what's going on this week in entertainment? As always, blackfilmandtv.com does an amazing job of putting information out, which I would say 95% of journalists aren't touching the stuff you touching, man. So kudos to you and keep doing what you're doing, man. So what's happening this week in entertainment?
Not much. It's about awareness. Theaters are starting to come back. Warner Brothers has had a slew of films. And they have a slew of films that was meant for the theater. And it's starting to show this weekend as Godzilla vs. Kong is hitting theaters, and the numbers are showing that people are starting to go to theaters again. It's expected to make over $40 million this weekend at the box office. Obviously, in the old days, it would have probably grossed $100 million, but half of that is not so bad, especially when you're talking that theaters are being filled at 25% capacity. So that's not so bad. So there's that. On Netflix, you have Concrete Jungle, which had played at last year's Toronto Film Festival, is now playing on Netflix.
Stop, sir. It's Concrete Cowboys. Concrete Jungle is another film.
Yes. Concrete Jungle is old.
See, a friend would do that for you instead of going, I'm going to let Wilson just be crazy town. But go ahead, Wilson.
There aren't many films with the word concrete in there, but anyway, Concrete Cowboys is now playing on Netflix, and that's produced by Idris Elba as well as Lee Daniels. It's directed by Ricky Stubb, and it stars Idris Elba, Caleb McLaughlin from Stranger Things, Method Man, the lovely Lorraine Toussaint, and Emmy Award winner Jarrell Jerome. And it's a father-son story. It's a cowboy story, a Black cowboy story. And it's worth seeing. Sometimes you get these stories that you've never heard of that taps into history that makes you want to go, let me look into this. Let me look into how come we don't get any stories about Black cowboys. It's like you start saying Black cowboys, how many films can you think of? Not many.
I see.
The great thing about
the Preacher. Yeah. Oh, Thomasine and Bushrod. That ain't a lot. I mean, you're right about that part. I guess Mandingo's a silly movie. But
you have to say within the last 10 years, you can't find much.
No, you can't.
But the great thing about this movie is that it's urban cowboy. It's not about the old west. It's happened right here in Philadelphia on Fletcher Street Stables. So it's urban. It's new. It's fresh.
So Wilson, I saw you did interviews with Idris and Caleb, right?
Yeah, I did interviews with practically the cast: Idris, Caleb, Jerome, Lorraine, and Method Man. They're all happy to be a part of it. Learn history themselves. Sometimes if you do a movie, depending on the role you play, there's a little bit of research that goes into the movie. You just don't go there and read the script and stuff like that. Sometimes you have to practice or have a little bit of education of what you're doing. Right. So when you're doing these interviews, it can't seem like it's just a job. I just read the lines.
Trust me, there's a lot of people that do that, man. So kudos to you again for not being the average.
Playing tonight on Lifetime is Robin Roberts presents Mahalia, the story of Mahalia Jackson, the Queen of Gospel, starring Danielle Brooks and directed by Kenny Leon. And, Mahalia
Are
Jackson.
you supporting this one? Are you supporting this film?
What do you mean, am I supporting this movie?
Because there was one movie. The reason I got to ask this question is because you told us about some movie that you knew you didn't support, but you were just reporting on it. But I think you support this one. You feel good about it.
I don't recall that. I'm saying you don't start throwing things. I don't recall that. I don't recall that. But anyway, I seriously don't recall that. Tim, I would give Tim an A for acting because you did that well.
Whoa!
If today's was the
am
first,
I making this up, Charles?
It was on me.
No.
I'm not making this up. I forget the name of the movie. It was some small independent movie, and we came back like the next week, and I was like, Wilson, you recommended this movie. I can't remember the title of it, and he was like,
Rule number 1: if you do not know, do not say. So rule number 1.
Did I violate rule number 1?
You violated, it's like, if you don't know what you're talking about, why are you bringing it up?
I'm sorry, man. I'm just saying, I was trying to get you to say I endorse this film, that this is.
I don't think it's not a question of endorsing, it's a question of letting people know. The thing is, there's so many shows and films and TV shows that get promoted. And obviously through history, when you think about when it comes to these award shows, SAG and all of that stuff, and so a lot of these shows, primarily white, people know about because they've been talked about. Not enough of our shows are being mentioned. Sometimes it's just a matter of being mentioned so that they are aware of it. I remember when Underground came out, and it's like, what's WGN? You couldn't find any show that you watched on there, but if you said it Underground enough times, people will find it. They did. They watched it. They loved it. So that goes, with a lot of films and shows that are on networks and platforms that you don't normally go to. Lifetime obviously has had a number of stuff that we've seen recently, and Mahalia Jackson, you haven't heard her story before, or who's played her before in films. I can't think of any, and she's got a story, and she too had a relationship, a friendship with Martin Luther King Jr. And Kenny Leon is known for his work on Broadway. He's a Tony Award winner. He's worked with Denzel before. He directed Denzel in Fences, and he's worked with Danielle Brooks before. And it also stars a number of Broadway actors like Joaquina Kulakanga, if I'm saying her name correct, who's also nominated for a Tony, which has yet to air, for Slave Play. You have Olivia Washington, who's in the movie and happens to be the daughter of Denzel Washington. So another Washington making the ranks of, moving up in terms of films and plays and TV shows and stuff like that. So you have that going on. It's just a matter of like, there are things that are starting to play on TV now that we should start paying attention to. Some shows out there that I don't think gets enough attention. No one talks about Snowfall. I don't know if you watch Snowfall, which airs on Wednesdays, and they are doing week after week. It goes where you don't think it's going to go, and you're like, and that's what you love about a weekly show, is that you can talk about it for a week.
So wait a minute, man. Can you say that again, man? Because there's somebody that's listening in the room that I've been trying to get to watch Snowfall, and they won't watch it. You said it does what? It does what every week, man?
It goes someplace different every week, I think he said.
Yeah,
wow. It's like it goes someplace different every week. Wow.
You're like, and that's the thing. It's not Netflix. You can just go next episode. You got to wait it out a whole week.
Right.
Yeah. But the press, you get the episodes early. You got to wait it out. So there's a number of shows that are out there. Queen Sugar, really Delilah. There's a number of shows. There's a number of Black talent on these shows that, granted, not everybody's getting the same pay rate to hire a publicist or management, who knows, to get those talent out to us so we can talk about them. But sometimes it's like when you see it, you just got to let people know to reward it. Another thing that just recently played out this morning was the official trailer to Space Jam: A New Legacy, which is the sequel to Space Jam, which is turning 25 years old this year. 1996, Space Jam.
You see my face, right? Look.
Okay, I'm boycotting the movie because the Okay, all right. Do I need to say any more? They cut out my man.
But no, but Wilson. But wait a minute. Let Wilson finish. I have a comment at the end. But go ahead.
I'm like, here's the thing. When you say, unless the movie or people of the film have personally done something to you, we're like, I supported this movie. I'm like, hey, I remember somebody on this show did not want to see Judas and the Black Messiah until they saw it, and then they had a change of opinion. So
I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know who that person is.
Who that is?
Who is that?
I would say, take a look at the film in its entirety, judge it afterwards. It's like, judge it out. You got directed by Malcolm D. Lee, starring LeBron James, who's had a bigger role here than he did in Trainwreck. You got the lovely Sonequa Martin and Don Cheadle, who, according to the trailer, plays the villain. You also had the trailer for Zola, which is the anticipated film that was based on a couple of tweets set out like years ago. And it stars Taylor Page, played at Sundance, got a good buzz. So it's expected to come out this summer, So there's a number of things that are out there. Spyro, they've now released the trailer to Spyro, which is called Spyro from the Book of Saw, which stars Chris Rock and Sam Jackson, which is another, I guess a spinoff of Saw somewhere connected to it, So we'll figure out.
That's absolutely what it is. That's absolutely so. But Wilson, don't empty all the barrels, man. Save some news. Wilson's just sitting down like, and then we got this. Hey man, relax. Give him a reason to come back next week, man. Dang.
Next week. Hey, we're talking about. This is all that just started this week. That started. Things that were released this week. Obviously, we're going to talk about films once they come out. You're going to go more in depth. But for people to know, hey, there's the trailer. As opposed to like when you start saying, we mentioned Concrete Cowboy. What if there was an audience that just did not know about the film because it wasn't mentioned before that it was coming out? Right. And if the movies are at the box office, and if you're just hearing about it right now, already the movie's at a loss because you're hearing about it on day 2. You know
what? And you are very responsible. And then also the big thing that just came out, even after Space Jam, was the trailer for Black Widow, the final. I think they called it the latest trailer. I'm not sure if it's the final, but the new Black Widow trailer just came out. So there's a lot of anticipation around that film. Why are you shaking your head, Charles?
I always find it weird when you drop trailers on a Saturday. I'm like, folks, we got a life.
No, it's a new trailer that just came out a couple hours ago.
Yeah, but it's not on Blackfilm and TV radar.
I think Black Widow just dropped one today, I think.
Right.
Right. So he was saying it wasn't on your radar because you didn't mention it until I brought it up.
Well, I'm only mentioning things that were released this week, not things that were released before. We can go into a whole slew of movies, what's coming out. I'm talking about trailers that were just dropped within the last 3 days. You know,
Black Widow was released today.
That's what I'm saying. So,
yeah.
and I was just starting to say, it's like sometimes students got to recognize. Listen, we all got a life. You know, drop it on a Friday. Why are you dropping it on Saturday? When, like, I can be sleeping till 2 a.m. You know, going away, turn off the computer. I'm like, nah, the hands are not working today.
No, I got you, man. I got you. Well, the first thing I wanted to say was congratulations, because I thought, you know, you did an amazing save after we had tried to put you in the corner. Nobody puts Wilson in the corner. Wilson was able to use a couple of jiu-jitsu moves. He got out of that. So that was hot. So that's number one.
I can stick it like Ali.
Vote like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
And I also learned today with the rest of our audience that you can't violate rule number 1. So, okay, I'm good with that. So in the future, I will always make sure I have an accompanying title when I want to come and clown Wilson about an event that occurred, and then he tried to get me back, and nobody remembers that either.
This show has there's no room for vagueness.
All right, but you didn't say anything about the biggest story of the week to me. Is that Reggae Jean Page is not coming back to Bridgerton? What's that about?
You know, here's the thing. If you read the books, and I haven't, but people who have read the books know that he was not included. You know, the story goes on. It's almost like Shakespeare, and you do a film, and you know that Shakespeare has an enormous amount, you know, of books. And just because one particular book does well doesn't mean you're going to take that character to the next book. So in the case of Bridgerton, it's a series of books because there's so many members of the Bridgerton family. The author focused in on each one of them. And so Reggae's story, granted, he was popular, he made it work. And, you know, and keep in mind, the books, I think primarily the characters are white. What Shonda Rhimes is doing is, you know, flipping it a bit and changing the race and gender, mostly the race of some of the characters, in which she made the Duke of Hastings black, you know, instead of white as it was in the book. And so for the next series, it's going to be still Bridgerton because they're white, but I think he's going to be opposite an Indian family, you know, so she's bringing Indian into the mix, you know, so Reggae did his thing. He got his popularity, but this is not going to be like Homeland where you bring brother back, you say, and like after he was supposed to only be there one season and then you drag them out. It's like, you know, you would hate for him to come back and then all of a sudden he's not given much to do and he just shows up and goes, hey y'all, how y'all doing? You say, hey, like a member of the family, you know, just sitting down on the couch listening to whoever the lead is, you know, it's like, yo, what's going on? We don't see much of him. Like, what more can you see? He did his part. Say, go back to season one.
Well, I'm gonna tell you one thing. I think the fact that Netflix announced this early that he wouldn't be coming back for season 2 is gonna hurt you season 2, because the women who make up the overwhelming amount of folks who watch that show love that character. And without that character being there, I mean, we'll see, but I can almost assure you, Wilson and Charles, that the numbers are not going to be as high for Bridgerton as they were season 1. I'm telling you that now.
It was better for them to announce it than him working on a project and then being questioned, like, when do you start shooting? It was like, I'm not coming back. And that becomes the news. So they're taking hold of the narrative and putting it out themselves because he's not in their control anymore. So he doesn't have to be quiet and say, I don't know. I was like, what do you mean you don't know? They started to shoot already. So
Wilson, I know you're a little young, man, but there was a group once upon a time called the Commodores, right? And as soon as Reggae, as soon as Reggae, aka Lionel Richie, left, what happened to the Commodores? I'm trying to tell you, man. I mean, there are so many stories. There was a group one time called the Police. This was before your time too. And they had a guy in the group. You might have heard of him. His name was Sting. There's a difference. There's a difference.
No.
Now, you may say I'm a little bit young, but was there any other singer on the Commodores besides Lionel Richie?
Yeah, there was a whole group of singers.
They were all singers.
Who took lead? How many of them took lead? How many of them took lead?
Who's taking the lead on Bridgerton in season 2?
Huh?
Who's taking the lead on Bridgerton in season 2?
The guy who's playing the lead. Well, you remember in Bridgerton, you had not only.
You see my face, Wilson. Look, who is this guy?
You're gonna know who they are.
No, I'm saying I watched season 1. Is this somebody that's already on season 1?
But here's what
season 1 is over.
But here's what's funny.
I'm gonna say this: people didn't know Regé-Jean Page as a lead actor until Bridgerton started. Until playing. So I'm gonna stick in there. We'll see.
Here's the thing: this wasn't his first series. Where was the love for him when he played Chicken George in the miniseries of Roots?
Where was the love for him when he played opposite Nnamdi Asomugha in Sylvie's Love?
Yeah, no, that was small role in there. He had a small, but I'm saying, but he also did another Shonda Rhimes series called For the People.
People.
Sort of like, you know, I hate to say it, it's sort of like you wait for white validation, meaning that, you know, a lot of white people saw it because, you know, it's mixed, and yet the guy had a big role in Roots. You know, he had a fabulous, costume designed by Ruth Carter, and like nobody was checking for him then. Nobody was checking for him when he's co-lead of a Shonda Rhimes series, but when he's on Netflix, and now he's playing his role in less episodes than he had in the Shonda Rhimes series. You know, less episodes, even though he had a little bit more to do. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, you know, maybe it's the pandemic and people get to watch everything on Netflix. But it's like, listen, you know, TV is a platform where a lot of newcomers are made. You know, so like, you know, at the end of the day, somebody goes, somebody comes back. You know, you could think of a number of shows where a lead left and then they replace them with somebody else. You know, I can't. You know, like David Caruso leaves NYPD Blue and he was the lead, and they replaced him with Jimmy Smits, and the show still carried.
Okay, so I'm gonna close on that, and that's a really good analogy. There's a major difference though. Jimmy Smits, and I'm a guy, and my lady is sitting behind so she can't see. Jimmy Smits is much hotter than David Caruso. So I don't think, and she's nodding. So the fact that you took a regular pasty dude and replaced him with a hotter dude is not a good analogy for Bridgerton because there's no hotter character that's still left on the show.
You don't
Some
know
chicks
that.
out there that love redheads.
But you don't know who's coming in the second season, is what he's saying. Because the second season is a different story. It could be all new characters, and somebody could come along and be that next Ray J. John Page.
Yeah, okay, you're right. I don't want to spend a lot of time.
But to wrap this up as we go in.
I don't want to spend a lot of time belaboring this point because Bridgerton season 2 is like 8 months away. We're not talking about that today. I got this huge background. We got to spend a lot of time giving love to the comedy king, Eddie Murphy, today. So, Wilson, you are correct. Watch this.
Can I say one more thing before we go, though? The police broke up before Sting left. That's all I'm saying.
I'm just trying to tell Wilson that, sometimes when you have a really strong person that people tune in for a certain character, when that character leaves, you better have some good writing or that show is going to go down, down, down.
You make it seem like this is like that episode in I Love Lucy when they go, Ricky Ricardo not playing tonight? Let's go.
if Ricky Ricardo left that show, Lucille Ball was the star. So that show would have still gone on without Ricky. I'm just saying, man. I mean, I'm not, I'm going to leave it alone. Wilson, tell people before we get out of here, because you're not leaving, but, where can they read the rest of the stuff that you didn't get a chance to cover today because we cut you off?
Go to, Blackfilm and TV. It's the same words you use on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram.
You can go there right now. I mean, because you can do two things at once. You can kind of read Wilson's thought. Oh, don't. Okay, never mind. Don't go there. Charles had a problem. You stay right here with us. All right. So, Wilson, as we've been talking all show, or at least the beginning of the show, today is the 60th birthday of Eddie Murphy. I feel like a really old man because I used to watch Eddie Murphy in SNL when I was in the 12th grade when he first came on that show and it exploded in 81. He was a guy, man, that revolutionized the business in so many different ways, man, because you got to remember, he was the next wave after people like Red Fox and Richard Pryor, right? Here comes Eddie Murphy and Bill Cosby. He was the next guy, right? And he explodes and he takes stand-up comics and makes them rock stars. So, people today are able to watch Kevin Hart and Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle. All that is made possible because of what Eddie Murphy did in the mid-'80s with specials like Delirious and Raw. Eddie Murphy, while he's a cast member on SNL, starts, doing his off-season making movies, right? He makes Trading Places. He makes 48 Hours. And then the movie that I think really launched him into superstardom, of course, is Beverly Hills Cop. And what I remember so much about Beverly Hills Cop, and again, Wilson being blackfilm.com, he knows this already. So even if he
Blackfilm and TV,
whatever, man. And blackfilmandtv.com is that this movie made, I remember, a ridiculous amount of money. I think it made like 325 million bucks, which in the 80s was unheard of. Like, you had Star Wars, Beverly Hills Cop, but movies weren't making $200-300 million. And here's Eddie Murphy. They made so much money on that movie. I don't know if Wilson remembers this. They offered Eddie Murphy $5 million to be in Best Defense for like 20 minutes. He was in the movie. They paid him $5 million for that. And that's back when Ed was saying in his stand-ups, like, y'all gonna pay me how much for this? Oh yeah, I'll do it. So he was taking roles like The Golden Child, another movie that, Eddie Murphy literally made it good. People went and checked it out, but not a really good movie. Later on, we get, of course, Coming to America, which is like an absolute classic. We get Boomerang. We get The Distinguished Gentleman. Eddie was just churning these movies out. And at the time, pre-Will Smith, Denzel Washington is around, but Denzel didn't have that level of star power that Eddie Murphy had. Eddie Murphy, man, we look back on his career, and I want to talk a lot about it today. people look back on it and just kind of take it for granted. You know, he's sitting at home, he's got 10 kids, you know, he's just started to come back out. But he's starting to come back out because he did so much stuff earlier in his career, and a lot of it wasn't good. And Eddie will tell you that The Adventures of Pluto Nash is not good. I didn't like Vampire in Brooklyn. There was a whole lot of movies that Eddie made that simply just didn't work for me. So I will start with Wilson. Blackfilm and TV.com. Your primary mission, man, is to chart our people in film. When it comes to our people and this absolute person that we're talking about today, this iconic comedy star, what are your feelings on Eddie Murphy's career and the legacy that he has built across almost 40 years now?
A lot of it, what you said is true, you know, and you think about, you know, from 81 to about early 90s, you know, that's a good 10-year run. He had a good 10-year unprecedented run of being the biggest, the only at the top of the line, way before Will Smith started coming. Because Will Smith didn't make his mark till he did Independence Day. And then he stuck with the sci-fi genre, which is an audience itself. You know, Will stayed away from like the drama films by itself. He just kept doing sci-fi. You think about what Eddie Murphy did. He already was dazzling them on SNL. And then he brings in, and then he starts transitioning to film, you know, that before him, you had John Belushi, you know, you had Chevy Chase, but they never had huge hits. They were okay stars. Eddie Murphy was a film star. And obviously, when you think about Beverly Hills Cop and the amount of people that came in, $300 million, that was like the highest for the longest time in terms of like, nobody's touching this. And then you mentioned Denzel, and then I go, when exactly did Denzel become a movie star? He was a film star, but in terms of box office, in terms of when did he become somebody that you're going to go check out? It wasn't for Glory, because Glory didn't make money like that. He won the Oscar, but it wasn't like that.
It wasn't Malcolm X.
It wasn't Malcolm X. You know, like when exactly did Denzel become an A-list, I'm bringing him in at the box office star? You know, you got to go back. I haven't done the research as though what exactly was the film, but Eddie Murphy had a good run at that point, you know, and then Will Smith came along, you know, and then in between there, you had Martin Lawrence, you know, but Eddie Murphy, you mentioned earlier the films we're going to be talking about that really made it. And then he made a bunch of bombs. Like he was coasting, like, okay, I'll take the money. I got a lot of kids to support. 5 million, I'll do it. 10 million, I'll do it. Half of these movies you can't even watch again. They're like Best Defense, wow, Pluto Nash, wow. You know, it's like, and then I'll say,
wow,
you know, for a good run, he had been coasting on the legacy of his career, like a number of actors who are not working on now. And granted, he put in his time and stuff like that, but it's like, dude, you've been running on your career for a long time, up until the last 3 years when he made his comeback with Dolomite, you know, and there's the Eddie Murphy we remember of old. I always just wonder, like, is it the director? Does he not respect him enough? You know, I'm not going to say the script, you know, he did greenlit it. He said, okay, I'll do it. But is it the director? Like, what does it take, you know, for him to give you the performance that you need, that we're going to appreciate, that we are going to say, hey, he's back. You know, you say Dreamgirls, and remember, you know, that was supposed to be his Oscar-winning turn. But, you know, the last few years, you know, between now you have him back in Coming to America too. Well, Coming to America. You know, it's not the best, but, you know, we've been waiting for that film to come back for years. And I think the excitement was more over the wait than the film, you know, but Dolomite was his comeback. I've had the pleasure, you know, to knock this off my bucket list, and met him during the run of Dolomite. I remember being in Toronto at a festival online for the premiere of a movie. I get a call from a publicist saying, listen, if you can make it, I can have you talk to Eddie Murphy one-on-one if you come right now. I'm like, I can always see a movie. I'm not gonna get that chance to go see Eddie Murphy. One-on-one before everybody starts talking to him. Went over there. They introduced me to him. I sat with him, and it was like, "What are you gonna say to the president?" They're like, "Okay, try to have a normal conversation. You know, hey Wilson, hey Eddie, this is Wilson Morales. You know, esteemed journalist, yada yada yada." I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" Then you like, okay, it's like that first date. Like, what am I saying? What am I saying? You know, it's like, and then you know, it's like, hey, you know, it's good to see you back. You know, yada yada. And then I got to moderate a panel, just me and him, in front of 800 SAG actors for 30 minutes, you know, and that one is something you can never replicate, you know, 40 ages. So like, you know, for him to turn, and then you think about it, he's 60, that's young, you know, that's young. And, you know, it's granted, so you can say that he had those lean years. If he's starting to make a comeback now, then we can chalk off the last 15 years as lean years, you know, if he starts to make, you know, good intentions from here on out.
All right, so Charles, before I throw it to you, man, Murphy's films, as of several years ago, and this number probably has gone up, his films had grossed $3.8 billion at the box office, and when you adjust it for inflation, it's at $6.7 billion worldwide, and he is now the sixth highest grossing actor in Hollywood history. We're talking about a guy whose career, he was at the apex, man. When you're talking about people like Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, you're talking about Eddie Murphy on that level. Talk about, you know, you heard what both Wilson and I have said about his career. And I agree with Wilson. I think he had from 1982 to probably 92 when he put out Boomerang. And then several years later, he had a couple of other Shreks and some of those other things that came along, the Nutty Professor. But his high point, I think, was probably that 10-year run that he had, early 80s to early 90s. Talk about the legacy of Eddie Murphy, man, because it's huge. And you know, Wilson said that, you know, I don't know when Denzel became that guy. Denzel never became that guy. Denzel never became the box office guy. Denzel is more, he's more considered an actor's actor. Like, you know, Eddie Murphy is not considered an actor's actor. He's considered a huge A-level box office dude. You put Eddie Murphy in your film during his height, that movie's gonna make a couple $100 million minimum worldwide. So entirely different apples and oranges argument between Washington, who's now 66, and Murphy, who is 60. So go ahead, Charles.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think I remember Murphy differently. I mean, maybe it's because of where he started with his Saturday Night Live, that he would always take these roles that were courageous and adventurous and creative. And yeah, he had a good run from the 82 to 92, but there were some dogs in there. I mean, you talk about Best Defense and Golden Child; those were all in that same time frame. And then he also had the time he wanted to be a singer, and he did Party All the Time. How could it be? All those things that, I mean, he tried things, he did things, he was out there. He was never shy, and which I appreciated. He went out there and he tried everything. Not everything worked, but man, when it did, it was awesome to watch. And you think about Delirious, you think about Raw, those things were awesome to view. And then you see Party All the Time, and you're like, well, what was he thinking? Best Defense. I know he got paid, but why? And so, yeah, Eddie Murphy he's a performer, and he puts himself out there and he does what he likes to do. And some of it hits and some of it misses. And that's just how a comedian is. So you're gonna watch a comedian. Some things are gonna be funny, some things are not gonna be funny. And Eddie was just courageous like that he got out there and he did what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it. And just like Coming to America, some of us love it, some of us hate it, but it's what he wanted to do and it's the way he wanted to do it. So I celebrate him. 60 years old, congratulations, man. Keep on doing what you want to do.
Well, you know, it's interesting, before I get back to Wilson, I've been in a room with all three, I'd say, Chris Rock, Eddie Murphy, and Dave Chappelle, right? And the one thing that I can agree on all these guys, and maybe this is most comedians, Eddie Murphy is that rare individual. And Wilson and I actually went to the Critics' Choice Association. I forget what the event was called. The last thing we did in LA where they gave Eddie Murphy, what was it?
Celebration of Black Cinema.
Celebration of Black Cinema. So we were in the room, right? Eddie Murphy is that guy, just in regular conversation, it's just funny. He doesn't necessarily need a script in order to be funny, just in regular conversation. Wilson, you've interviewed him. Yeah, he's just funny. You trying to get us banned by the YouTube.
Banned on YouTube.
You notice we didn't play any clips, man, on purpose. But Eddie Murphy is just funny. And one of the things that stands out, because on days when I'm bored and I want to laugh, I'll just get on YouTube and put in Eddie Murphy's name and you just watch interviews he's done. And he was on Jerry Seinfeld's Netflix show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. And he tells, I don't know if you ever saw this, Wilson, he tells this hilarious story about him being in high school and having to play at a club in Long Island called Gerald's, and how they didn't have a dressing room and he shows up and he's supposed to do 2 sets and was going to get $50, and how he bombs the first set and they didn't have a dressing room. So he had to sit out in the audience with the people he bombed with. So he's kind of describing that story. And then he says, he looks at Seinfeld and he goes, man, and this guy was a grown man. He was so mean. He said, I asked the guy, hey, Gerald, when do I get my $50? And of course, I can't say what Gerald said, but he turns around and told him, you better. So he talks about how, he goes on to explain how his father had to get up at 2 a.m, who was still working, during the mornings, had to drive Eddie home and was like, oh, you a comedian. Oh, no, you gonna get you a job. So I'm just saying, in regular conversation, I find this man to be amazingly funny to me. And again, as probably the oldest guy on the show right now, when you heard me say Eddie's emergence is when I was coming out of high school, going into the military. I remember coming home from Camp Lejeune in North Carolina to come and hang out with my friends, and we would sit around before we would go out to party in New York. We would sit around and watch SNL, and when SNL was over at 1, we'd all hop in our cars and get on over to New York. Eddie Murphy means a great deal to me. He is of my generation. He is my guy. Wilson, you were about to say what?
No, just remembering that event you mentioned where for 3 minutes, 3 minutes, Eddie Murphy didn't have much of a speech, but he made you crack up in laughter, in tears. I go, this is 3 minutes. I can't wait to see what he does for his Netflix show. Like he may break the bank, like in terms of like, we've seen Dave Chappelle, and we've seen other people, but Eddie Murphy is like, no, let's come back. I'd rather it be called Eddie Murphy, no holds barred. Just say what you want to say as if you were doing Raw 2, but they can't do Raw 2 because there's going to be groups out there like, nah, you can't do that no more. So like,
tell them, you can't, hey, it's a different world, man.
A different world now. It's like, now it's all about cancel culture. It's like, nah, can't say that. It's like, really?
Yeah, but now I don't see anybody trying to cancel Eddie Murphy, though. Eddie Murphy is above cancel culture, I think. No. I mean, there's certain people. You don't think anybody's above cancel culture?
Nobody is above cancel culture anymore. Nobody.
Well, y'all cancel Dr. Cosby, man. I'm still mad about that.
They came for Weinstein. They came for Chappelle. I mean, they'll come for everybody.
They came for Chappelle, but you weren't able to get Chappelle. You can come for me, but Wilson is right. We talk about Murphy's ability as a storyteller. The fact that he said he was inspired by Peter Sellers to make these movies where he plays multiple characters. In the most recent Coming to America, he plays 4 characters in that one, 4 or 5? Because I know Arsenio plays about 4 or 5.
At least.
We've seen him in The Nutty Professor playing multiple characters. We've seen him in his voice work in films like Mulan and Shrek. Murphy's career, and I want to tell people that are watching us, he's very much alive. So, when Charles is like, Murphy was this and Murphy is this. He's still very much here, but it's good that we do these types of shows, man, because I call these flower shows, man. You know, a guy who's had a 35, 40-year career, we do need to do more shows kind of acknowledging the groundbreaking work, the entertainment that they have given us. I was in the room with Wilson. Wilson laughed a lot when Eddie Murphy was on stage, and so did I. Charles and I have talked about Eddie Murphy movies. We have laughed a lot. So now that we got about 10 minutes left in the show, here comes the hard part. I'm gonna need you guys to give us your 6 favorite Eddie Murphy films, and I've got mine listed out, and I've got to try to figure out what order, because I had a total of 14 movies that I'm going to whittle down literally live and on the spot right now, because about 3 or 4 of these are really easy. So in no particular order for me, I'm going to go, what's got to be on the list is the original Coming to America from 1988. I put that in the 1 spot. I put Boomerang from 92 in the 2 spot. In the 3 spot, I'm going Beverly Hills Cop. And here's where it gets really interesting. I got 3 spots left. I think his performance in Dreamgirls is absolutely amazing. When he played James Thunder Early, I would put that in the 4th spot. Dolomite Is My Name, his Rudy Ray Moore comeback film, I put that in the 5th spot. And last but not least, and this is hard, man. Last but not least, I'm going to have to go back to God, man, this is hard.
It's
hard. It's between Trading Places and 48 Hours. I would have to pick 48 Hours because 48 Hours was groundbreaking at the time. We hadn't seen a black character tell off a bunch of white folks in a bar, which that moment was the equivalent of black folks in 1967 watching Sidney Poitier slap that white man in the greenhouse. But no, I'm sorry. The white man smacking Sidney Poitier in the greenhouse, and Poitier backslapped him back, pow! And then the guy looked at the butler. He was like, so that would be my list. Coming to America, Boomerang, Beverly Hills Cop, Dolomite Is My Name, Dreamgirls, and 48 Hours are my top 6 Murphy picks, man. Wilson needs some time.
No, I can do this. I can do this.
Hold on a second. Wilson called you out. I can do this. Go ahead, man.
Here, I'm thinking of which of the movies were solely Eddie Murphy before I talk about the ensemble films. So then when you think about Eddie Murphy solo, the movies that he made, obviously, I'm going to have not Coming to America. I'm gonna have 48 Hours. You know, actually not even 48 Hours. You have Beverly Hills Cop, because it was mostly him. You didn't know who these other guys were. You know, you start naming like, give me the top 4 actors in Beverly Hills Cop. You're gonna go blank. It was mostly Eddie Murphy. And it was him. And then you have and then I was thinking about Trading Places. And before that, you've always had the black and white cop movies, but he made his different. I was thinking about this movie called Running Scared, 1986 film that had Gregory Hines, Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
And you can go back throughout that time, how many times they paired black and white, but Eddie made his work with Nick Nolte, because they gave him equal footing. So basically you got Beverly Hills Cop, you got Trading Places, and then you have Coming to America. That was him. I would say put that number 3. I would definitely go Dolomite 4, Boomerang 5. Boomerang 5 because you also had you had Halle Berry. You had Martin Lawrence. You have David Allen Greer. So you had Robin. It was an ensemble film, and I remember when Reginald Hudlin directed it, and they were urging Eddie not to do it because they wanted him to stay in a certain lane, and I think that was the first film he did where he played the romantic lead, and he was like, oh, he can show that he can show more than that. He can show that he can be more than just funny. We already seen him do action. Can he do romance? And now you got a leading guy who could do romance. You know.
Wait a minute. So are you done with your 6? Or are you still pontificating on 5?
One. He got one more to go.
Go ahead, man.
My last one is I would say Harlem Nights.
Yeah.
All right. So look.
All right. So hold on a second. So wait a minute. I'm writing this down because I'm posting all of this later on today. You know. So what were the other? So you had Trading Places, Harlem Nights, and what else?
I said Trading Places.
You got Trading Places. Go ahead.
What did I say? I think number 3 was. Number 4 was Dolomite. Number 3 was Coming to America. Number 2 was Beverly Hills Cop. You know, number 6 was Harlem Nights. What am I missing?
Hold on a second. I got Coming to America for you. I've got Dolomite. I got Trading Places. I got Harlem Nights. You had Trading Places already. I have written Trading Places down, so I don't know.
Trading Places.
48 hours. Yeah, 48 hours.
Yeah, 48 hours was number 1.
So you had 48 hours in the number 1 spot. Wow. Wait a minute. Then you had one more that I found there. You had Harlem Nights. So I still got 5. I'm missing 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Harlem Nights, Trading Places, Dolomite, Coming to America, 48 hours.
Boomerang. You missed Boomerang.
Oh, Boomerang. All right. All right, Charles Kirkland, you up?
All right, so I'm going to go in order. I think it's unequivocally number 1 is Coming to America, the original, the first one, because of all the work that Eddie did. You talked about all the roles that he played in Coming to America. He was all over the place, and this is a classic film. It was Wakanda before Wakanda, and they kind of joked about it in Coming to America, but it was the icon of Black love at that time, because you had royalty, and it was the Lion King, it was Black Panther, all of that before, and so that's why Coming to America has got to be number 1. Number 2 for me, Boomerang. I love Boomerang, again, for the same reason that Wilson talked about. It showed that he's more than just comedy. He's smooth. He's a lover. He's a leading man. He went through a lot of emotions in this film. I thought it was his best film, and plus the soundtrack is off the chain. Number 3 for me is Beverly Hills Cop. Beverly Hills Cop. Hey, you know what it is. 4 for me, and this is where Tim is not going to be happy. I think Harlem Nights is a classic, and the work that he does with Della Reese and Red Fox. I mean, come on now, it's a classic. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that agree with me. That thing was hilarious. Harlem Nights. You can't quotable, and in certain circles, because some of that stuff it's too raunchy and expletive filled to repeat. But Harlem Nights is a classic. Trading Places. Now, Boomerang had Halle. Trading Places had Jamie Lee Curtis, and there were 2 films in my life where I was happy to see Jamie Lee Curtis, because I saw her. That was Halloween and Trading Places. So very happy that he got to work with another SNL character, Dan Aykroyd. I mean, and that film just carries on through everything else that he's done. I mean, we always see the Dukes brothers somewhere from that point on. So Trading Places is number 5. Is that 5 for me? Mm-hmm. Number 6, rounding out my top 6, is Dreamgirls. The movie, he should have won an Oscar. If it were not for Norbit, he would have been an Oscar holder for playing James Thunder Early, which again, he sang in that movie. He sang his parts. He acted. It just showed another side of Murphy that we hadn't seen. I mean, we sing Party all the time, like I said before, but this was a great performance that he did there. And I don't think he should have been robbed the Oscar, but he deserved it, because he did a lot of work in that movie. Classic again. Dreamgirls. And I mean, the problem with Dreamgirls is it really just wasn't Eddie Murphy. It was an ensemble. A lot of his stuff has been ensemble, because you could talk about Shrek, even Dolomite was ensemble, but he stood out in that film so much that it had to be put in there for me as one of his best.
All righty, so we got a couple minutes to go. So now we're gonna do the bonus question, because you knew this was coming. What is the worst Eddie Murphy movie? I already got the answer. I was writing it down while Charles was talking. The movie that Eddie Murphy acknowledges as his worst movie, and he literally had to almost take a siesta after making this one, was The Adventures of Pluto Nash. That movie, man, is wretchedly bad. But there are a lot of other candidates that are out there. You got Golden Child. Despite Wilson and Charles putting Harlem Nights on their screenplay, Harlem Nights to me has literally no script, no story. It's just a bunch of different bits. Coming to America may have had a threadbare story, but there was so much good acting. And Boomerang's the same way. There's so much good acting around all that stuff. Those two films stand out in a way for me that Harlem Nights doesn't. Of course, there's Beverly Hills Cop 3. There's Charles like Church, 1,000 Words. So Wilson, what is your worst Eddie Murphy movie?
Let me see. You got Holy Man. You got.
I forgot about that one.
You got. Mr.
Vampire,
Church.
Brooklyn.
Stop coming from Mr. Church.
I Spy was another one. Showtime. Remember that one? That one with him and De Niro?
How about Metro and wait a minute. What was that movie? Oh, geez.
You know what, man? Y'all bandying all these titles around. You only
it's kind of funny. I'm looking at the poster for Best Defense, and they've got what's the name on the cover of
Dudley Moore.
Dudley Moore. You're like, wow.
So what do you got, Wilson? Which one you gonna pick?
I will pick Vampire in Brooklyn.
All righty, Vampire in Brooklyn. This official tally for Wilson. Charles Kirkland Jr.
I could have said Bowfinger or some. Hey, but I'm going to stick with Norbit as being his worst film, because that's the one that took away the Oscar. I think that was the worst film that he had done.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Murphy, that we had to go out on your worst.
Coming from Mr. Church. Mr. Church was not that bad.
Man, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm sorry. My apologies to Eddie Murphy, because it's all in fun that, we talk about your worst, because you had so many really good movies. On behalf of Wilson Morales and on behalf of Charles Kirkland Jr., I want to say first and foremost, happy birthday to Eddie Murphy, Eddie Reagan Murphy, who has had a career that's still unparalleled. I mean, you talk about Will Smith. Will Smith ain't got Eddie Murphy numbers when it comes to box office. So Eddie Murphy has put the goalpost out so far. It's gonna take a super actor who has got massive mainstream appeal and likability to even get close to that in 2021 and beyond. Wilson Morales, man, again, like I told you, man, amazing job. Thank you, bro, for coming through and lending your expertise. Charles Kirkland, you do it for us every week here on the show. And when you're not here and Wilson's trying to fill his seat and your seat, it's almost like when Maurice White's not in the band that, Philip Bailey is trying to be Maurice White and himself, and it's hard. So thank you for being back on the show today. Next week, we're getting ready to hit another milestone. It's going to be episode 450. So I was told not to do anything special because we're waiting for 500, but 450, man. Wow, man. So thank you, guys. It's been a wrap. Please see something good at the movies. Concrete Cowboys is playing on Netflix this weekend. You can go back and check out Tina, Zack Snyder's The Justice League, and any of the other new movies that are out in theaters or at theaters and on streaming services. I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. Until next week, man, you guys enjoy your Saturday. You can say goodbye before I cut you off, man.
Take care. Goodbye. Good night. We'll talk later.